everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, and on X. I am Bryson Carver, and I'm really excited about today's show. We're going to be touching a number of subjects around the world of sports, getting it to World Baseball Classic. I'm sad about the outcome for Team USA. I will admit, I am. There's a part of me that is legit happy for Venezuela, and a part of me wearing this hoodie right here that's especially happy for my beloved Boston Red Sox. Touch on that in just a moment. Also get to Jaylen Waddle, who was traded to the Denver Broncos yesterday. I think this is a mutually beneficial trade. Get to that. A very fun edition of Carving Up the Context. So there are reports that looks like next week the NBA is going to vote on whether or not they're going to have two expansion teams from Seattle and from Las Vegas. It looks like it might very well happen. And so under the assumption that it does, we're going to reorganize the NBA. I'm going to add some new rule changes to the NBA, some new relocations. Obviously, you're going to have at least one Western Conference team because both Seattle and Vegas would be in the Western Conference. You'll have one Western Conference team move out east. I'll tell you who that is. And also, that team moving out east will have a new city. Discuss that later in today's show. Also get to Mock Draft 2.0, my second mock draft. Obviously, some changes with the Jaylen Waddle trade yesterday. There's obviously going to be one change at pick number 30. That was once the Broncos. Now it belongs to Miami. Get to that at the end of today's show. Big news that dropped this morning. Shout out to Shams Sharani for breaking this live on ESPN, that the WNBA, thank God, has come to an agreement on a brand new CBA that is very beneficial to the players as well as the growth of the league. This is going to be the first time that the WNBA is in a spot where, okay, it's on you guys to kind of produce and perform from a financial standpoint. Very excited to get to that at the end of today's show. But first, and a very unfortunate ending for Team USA last night as we lost to Venezuela in the World Baseball Classic final 3-2. So I was wrong on a number of fronts. Number one, I said that Italy would beat Venezuela. They did not. Venezuela had a big seventh inning in that game the other night. And then I said that, hey, Team USA versus the Dominican Republic, all the all-stars and MVPs, that's the real final. That was wrong on that one too. And the biggest reason I was wrong on that, it's okay, it's twofold. So first of all, credit where it's due. Eduardo Rodriguez, former champion, by the way, with my beloved Boston Red Sox, but a guy who had an ERA over 5 last season with the Arizona Diamondbacks, pitched the game of his life. Show Eduardo Rodriguez, former Red Sox champion right there. 4 1/3 inning, only gave up 1 hit, no earned runs, 4 strikeouts, only walked 1 batter in that game against Team USA. So Eduardo Rodriguez was sensational. He was really good. But let's keep it a buck. And I respect Erod, but let's keep it a buck. The biggest reason that people believed that if you pick Team USA to win this, if you didn't go with the Dominican Republic or if you didn't go with Japan, the biggest reason, if you pick Team USA to get the job done in this year's World Baseball Classic, the lineup is insane. Well, on paper, certainly, and there's, I think, a main culprit for it not showing up, or at least for not doing his part in the biggest spots. We'll get to him in just a moment. But if you look by round, this lineup just got worse and worse as they face tougher competition. Show what Team USA did in terms of, so in pool play, their average, the batting average was 293, pretty good. Quarterfinal against Canada, 242, enough to get the job done. Semifinal against the Dominican Republic, they did nothing for the last 5 innings of that game, basically offensively, after the Roman Anthony homer, hit 212 in that game. And last night against Venezuela, they barely put triple digits up there. They've had 100 against Venezuela. And if not for a Bryce Harper semi-miracle home run in the 8th, which I will say, shout out to my guy Alfred Barstar Jr., the host of the Metropolitan Report. Check out his show. I think he's going live tonight, so check out his stuff. Great dude, knows his baseball. I texted him right before. I said, Bryce is about to go deep. And sure enough, Bryce Harper looks like he's an American hero. He's tied it at 2 apiece. And then, of course, Venezuela scores in the 9th, and Team USA goes 1-2-3 Cancun. And so, outside of that, Team USA did nothing offensively. Bryce Harper showed up. Roman Anthony, who's had a great tournament. My guy, my Roman Empire, very excited to see him next year, or this coming season, in a few weeks in Boston. He was bad. Bregman, the former Red Sox, no show. Schwarber, nothing. You just go up and down the lineup. And listen, people are getting on, what's my guy's name for the New York Mets? People are getting on the starting pitcher, Noah McLean, for his performance last night. Listen, it's World Baseball Classic final. And if you're going to get mad at him for giving up 2 earned runs and that's why we lost, then that to me is more of an indictment on the offense than on Noah McLean. So that's where I'm at on that. But if we're going to be fair here, The best player objectively in Major League Baseball, by definition the best player in the world, is Shohei Ohtani. He's a 4-time league MVP. He's a two-way player. He can be an ace, and he can be the best power hitter in baseball all in the same night. He's a unicorn. You've never seen anything like Shohei. The supposed second best player in the world, and I think the undisputed best American player, is Aaron Judge. No show in the last 3 games. Nothing. And if you look at his career, listen, to his credit, he was actually quite good. I talked about it in the show. We've been waiting for that good Aaron Judge postseason. It ended in game 4 of the division series on his home field, but he did his job last year. Helped knock out my Red Sox in the 3-game wildcard series and did all he could against the Toronto Blue Jays team that came as close as anybody, at least since the 2011 Texas Rangers, to winning the title. But I tracked this in elimination games, in games where the Yankees, or in the 3 games in which the Americans were facing elimination, Aaron Judge goes from super duper star, multi-time MVP to, it's fine, it's okay. Bats about 250. 250 is good average. But he's got a lot of 0 for games in here. I've got the list on here. He's got some 0 for 5, 0 for 4, another 0 for 4, and 0 for 5. And I think that was 2020. He's got an 0 for 4 in 2022. In this year's postseason against Boston in that do-or-die game 3. 0 for 3 in that game. No show last night. After Bryce Harper saves the United States for the time being, Aaron Judge strikes out looking the next at bat. Now, I'm not saying I expect Aaron Judge how Harper and Judge to go back-to-back there, but the momentum for that game has completely flipped. At least it feels like it. And you strike out with the bat on your shoulder, essentially. And sometimes it's this simple. Sometimes in sports, there are those comparing him to James Harden. I think, I won't, this isn't about Harden. I'm not going to pull up his resume. I've got it right now on the doc. I'm not going to show it. James Harden, to me, has the worst postseason resume of any superstar in the history of American team sports. Again, we don't have time to get into it today. I'm sure we'll get into it once the Cavs get knocked out, so stay tuned for that. I don't put Aaron Judge in that category. I've seen, as evidenced by last year, I've seen big moments where, hey, Aaron Judge did his job. He was the only reason the Yankees even had a puncher's chance against Toronto last year. But there are certain athletes that just aren't the same player in the biggest spots. Does the moment get too big for them? I don't know. Aaron Judge, we're almost a decade in with supposedly the greatest franchise in American sports, the Yankees. Oh my gosh, the Yankees. 1 World Series appearance in which he was bad against the Dodgers. No championships. Multiple ALCS losses. You could say 2017, they got cheated by Houston. Fine. 2019 is from Shady Stuff with Houston. Fine. They got swept in 2022. Is Houston cheating then? So this idea like, oh my gosh. Some athletes just don't step up in the biggest moments. That sometimes that's just a reality. And if you're talking about a guy like Aaron Judge, and if you're talking about any great athlete, I've always said this. There tends to be, and I don't even think it's even unfair per se, it's a case-by-case basis. There tends to be this expectation in the biggest spots or from regular season to playoffs, I expect my best player to improve. Like, if to use basketball example, Michael Jordan gets better in the playoffs. LeBron James gets better in the playoffs. Some guys stay the same. That's kind of my expectation. Hey, just be who you were in the regular season to get us to this point. Now, in a big game 6 facing elimination or game 7, you need to step up a little bit. It's a bigger spot. But for the duration of the playoffs, and even to a certain degree in the biggest games, just be who you were all season long. To use the Yankees example, A-Rod won the same guy in the playoffs. Jeter got better in the playoffs. There's that weird paradox where it's like A-Rod's the better player, but we trust Jeter more in the biggest spots. And for a guy like Aaron Judge, listen, people can say this is unfair, but let's be honest. This was a deep World Baseball Classic field. We felt like it was 3 real, true, they can win it this year teams, USA, Japan, and the Dominican Republic. It turns out Venezuela, we'll get to them in just a moment. Venezuela ends up getting the job done. They end up taking the crown. But the talent pool's deep. And in the biggest moments, no show. And that's been the story of Aaron Judge's career. I know he's the captain for the Yankees. I know he's the captain of Team USA. Kind of expect the captain to step up in the biggest spots, right? You could blame Bryce Harper. I mean, Bryce is, to me, the only guy you really can't be too hard on, at least for last night. Bryce had done nothing the first however many games, certainly the quarterfinal and the semifinal game, did nothing. Last night saved us, briefly. If you want to get mad at the younger guys like Roman Anthony, okay, knock yourself out. Roman's 21 years old. Aaron Judge is in his 30s. He's a multi-time MVP winner. I've heard some people say he's a better baseball player overall than Shohei Ohtani, which I think is lunacy. What I don't think is lunacy is, yeah, he's absolutely the best American player. Bobby Witt Jr. is great. He's not that good. He's great until you need him to be. It's that simple. And you can't trust Aaron Judge in the biggest spots. As for Venezuela, and then I've got a Red Sox take. As for Venezuela, there was something really, really cool. Yeah, of course I'm pulling for United. I'm in America. I'm pulling for the United States. I wanted to come on this show and say, man, USA, we're the defending Olympic champions in terms of team sports. We're the defending Olympic champions in men's and women's basketball from the previous Olympics over France, in both those games. We are the defending gold medalists in men's and women's hockey very recently in the Winter Olympics. We've had the last 60 Super Bowl champions. I mean, what can you say about that? And we are the champions of the World Baseball Classic. So we're number one at everything. Unfortunately, last night in particular, thanks to our offense, that was not the case. But there was a part of me, obviously I'm disappointed when Roman Anthony strikes out at the end. Not just because it's Roman Anthony, but because the game's over. But there was a part of me that's like, good for those players. I know, before the game, the outstanding A++ Fox crew, Kevin Burkhardt, who's sensation. I saw those guys in person at Bristol last year. Best of the best. Burkhardt, Alex Rodriguez, my dog, David Ortiz. Appreciate the t-shirt, by the way, my man. And Derek Jeter. They're the best of the business. But they were talking beforehand how Venezuelan players were openly talking about how this is bigger for us than a World Series. And Jeter kind of said, and I really don't think Jeter meant it as a dig, but Jeter said something along the lines of, it's only bigger than a World Series if you've never won a World Series. Now, Jeter's a 5-time champion. A-Rob won one back in 2009, and Big Papi won 3. It's all champions on that set. But when you do contextualize, Venezuela has never sniffed. The World Baseball Classic hasn't been around that long, but they've never sniffed this. They've never been to a title game in their history. Now they've won the title. Now they've won the gold medal. There's the element of their manager. They were talking on the broadcast last night how he had to kind of talk his wife into, hey, just give me one more go at it. We're going to win this thing. And kudos to him. He kept his word. There's the Salvador Perez factor. Salvador Perez, ultimate professional, great clubhouse guy. And there's the element of, without getting into specific details, it's not a terribly peaceful time in Venezuela right now. I'm sure a lot of those guys, all of those guys, I'm sure have families back home that are dealing with stuff, with what's going on. And so for them to kind of say, hey, this is bigger than a World Series. Hey, this is bigger than baseball. This is the biggest baseball game in the history of that country. And you're seeing guys crying. Eduardo Rodriguez is weeping like the guys in the field, giving glory to God. This is amazing. It was cool to see. And it was also dope to see. And Bryce Harper after the game is shaking their hands. You do not see that in Major League Baseball. I generally don't have that big of a problem with that. I think post-game handshakes are a little overrated. But for Bryce Harper to go out, shake their hand, hey, great game, guys. Congratulations. Was cool to see. It's an easy team to root for. And so for Venezuela in a field, where it's Japan, DR, United States, for them to emerge victorious, nothing but hats off to them. And in a game like baseball, it's a weird, fluky situation. With the Bill Russell quote, best 2 words in sports are game 7, or they're just saying anything can happen in a game 7 or an elimination game of any kind. That especially applies to Major League Baseball, or baseball in general. And you saw that last night. Team USA went ice cold, which is hard to do in Miami, Florida, but they did. Venezuela took advantage. Kudos to them. For them to weather that Bryce Harper storm in the 8th inning, come back immediately. Because here's the thing, too, about Venezuela. The disadvantage they had in terms of lack of arms in the bullpen, they played not yesterday, but the day before against Italy. United States was on a day rest. So we have plenty of arms that we could throw out there. Should it have gone to extra innings? They really wouldn't have. And so for them to weather that storm, get the big hits when they had to, kudos to Venezuela. My last take on this game. and really this tournament in general. I put together this graphic because I saw this earlier today. It made me very, very happy. As a guy who's wearing this hoodie I'm wearing right now, for those that are listening to the show, I'm wearing a Boston Red Sox hoodie because I'm a diehard Red Sox fan. How about if you had to take a guess, the top 6 countries in terms of home runs in the entire tournament? Let's go and put up that list. So we've got the Dominican Republic, no surprise, a lot of firepower there. They were number 1. They had 15 home runs. And Italy had 12 home runs. They were in second. Venezuela, the champions, congrats to them. They had 11 home runs. The Boston Red Sox outfield had as many home runs as Japan and more home runs than the United States. Talking about my man Willie Abreu and Roman Anthony and Jaron Durant. Those guys showed up in a major way. And so for the Red Sox outfield, 4th in this tournament. The Red Sox outfield. In terms of home runs, the World Baseball Classic, only the Dominican Republic, Italy, and Venezuela beat us. Again, some of this is an indictment on the United States because you've got Judge, Harper, Schwarber, up and down the list. But this makes me feel a little bit bad. As a diehard Red Sox fan, I've gone into the season thinking, God, our staff's good. Our pitching staff's great. Don't love our lineup. I'll be honest. I'm not crazy about it. Not a lot of power at all, especially post-Devers trade. Maybe I feel a little bit differently now. If we can stay healthy, these guys are getting older or maturing. Maybe I feel a little bit differently. Now, I'm not predicting World Series or anything, but hey, could we be better than last year? Yeah, it's on the board. So as a Red Sox fan, this tournament was great for me. This and John Smoltz said it on the broadcast last night. Like, if you're the biggest winners of this tournament outside of whoever wins gold, which was Venezuela, is the Boston Red Sox. They got to feel great about their lineup. So if offense was the problem, maybe that's fixed. I know it's only 3 guys, but hey, maybe it's fixed. By the way, shout out to my mother for grabbing a Chick-fil-A lemonade. Okay, let's shift now to the NFL. Great World Baseball Classic, by the way. It was really, really fun to watch. And in 15 minutes, or probably about 10 minutes, actually, 10 minutes, a special edition of Carving Up the Context, where we're going to be realigning the entire NBA based on potential expansion involving Seattle and Las Vegas. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. But shifting the NFL, though, had a big trade yesterday involving an elite wide receiver. Jaylen Waddle was traded from the Miami Dolphins to the Denver Broncos. We can show you the trade right here. So the Broncos get Jaylen Waddle. They also get from Miami a 4th-round pick. Basically, Miami and Denver swapped 4th-round picks, so that's kind of a wash. Miami, in return for Waddle, gets a 1st-round pick from this year and a 3rd-round pick for this year. Now, there are reports, because kind of from Miami's perspective, and I guess we'll start with them first on this trade, there have been reports, okay, well, now what happens with Devon Achane, their excellent running back, and initially it sounds like now they're going to keep him. Now, my guess is, hey, Malik Willis come to the building. Malik Willis has 6 touchdown passes in his career. He's very limited experience. We can't leave him with nothing. I know we're kind of doing like a soft tank. Our front office, new GM, new coach, they have the assurance of, unless it's just an utter disaster, and even if it is, you're back for 2027. We don't want to make Malik Willis's life a living hell back there. Now Miami's in a situation where they kind of have to draft a wide receiver in the 1st round. Stay tuned for my mock draft later in the show. You can draft a wide receiver. You've got Achane. You don't want to leave a completely bare cupboard, even if you are doing a soft tank. So if you're Miami, I give the organization a lot of credit. It's a new regime, new group of people making decisions. I give the organization credit in this sense that, yeah, we're paying a lot of dead money. I think it's, $145 million, something crazy. Let me check my notes and double check. $175 million. I apologize. They are paying to Tua, to Jaylen Waddle. They're in bad shape. You moved on from Tyreek Hill the whole bit. Miami understands, listen, Buffalo's a contender. New England just made a Super Bowl last year. Jets are the Jets. But we're nowhere near close to contention. AFC's a stacked conference. We're the mindset. Let's just rebuild this thing. Let's not act like we can do anything of note with the group that we have. So I think it's a smart move by Miami. I think Miami understands where they are, where the organization is at right now. You hope Malik Willis is the guy. If he's not, you draft somebody in 2027. You'll almost certainly be one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the NFL in what's supposed to be a much better quarterback draft than this year and last year for that matter. I think this is a smart business move. The Dolphins get some extra picks. This is good. For Denver, we could show you, I think most people know how good Jaylen Waddle is, but we'll show you what he did last year. Not like ridiculous numbers, but given the fact that Tua had the worst year since his rookie season, the fact that Quinn Ewers was the starter at the end of the year, 64 catches for 6 touchdowns, 910 yards, 14 yards a catch on 100 targets. Not bad, especially with Tyreek Hill going down. So this was the first time Jaylen Waddle was like the undisputed number one receiver since he was a rookie, I guess, because Tyreek came in 2022. But he's a rookie. It's a different situation. This is the prime of Jaylen Waddle's career, number one receiver. And by and large, he did his job, especially with very limited quarterback play from Tua and then later from Quinn Ewers. I also think this is a smart move by the Denver Broncos. What's really interesting is that if you look at the AFC West today, the Kansas City Chiefs, and y'all know I'm a Mahomes believer. I'm a huge Patrick Mahomes fan and have defended the Chiefs for a while now. The Chiefs are still the co-favorite to win the West, which to me is a sign from Vegas like, oh, yeah, gosh, yeah, Mahomes he'll be back. He'll be Patrick Mahomes. Got Kenneth Walker, Travis Kelce. You brought Airbnb back to call plays. Okay. We got to see what happens with Rashid Rice situation. That, will he be available to start the year or at all? We'll see. I understand Vegas giving Kansas City the respect, and I'm not predicting anything until September. We still got a whole draft to go through. But Denver indisputably got better today. Or yesterday, I guess, when they made this move for Jaylen Waddle. What was the number one weakness of that Broncos team last year that we all kind of acknowledge? Even if we had reservations about Bo Nix, we're like, yeah, he's a at bare minimum, a competent starter, and on his best days, a very, very good NFL franchise quarterback. They had arguably the best line in the league. They ran the football effectively. Sean Payton calling plays, QB whisper. We know who Sean Payton is. People, to me, were too down on Courtland Sutton. I still think Courtland Sutton can be a number one. I think he showed himself to be a number one and a big-time third down and 7 guy for Bo Nix last season. Marvin Mims is a okay, too. He's a great number 3 receiver. Well, now that you add Jaylen Waddle, that takes some attention away from Courtland Sutton, which could mean more one-on-one balls. You have Waddle, you have Sutton, you have Marvin Mims. You have an opportunity to run the football effectively with J.K. Dobbins. Like, you're in really good shape in that regard. You're a well-balanced offense, especially now. Bo Nix, by all accounts, it sounds like he's going to be 100% ready to go for the season. We know the injury he suffered in that playoff game against Buffalo that kept him out for the Patriots game. But Sean Payton's like, hey, Bo's on a rookie deal. Jaylen Waddle's contract is absolutely manageable. We've got Courtland Sutton, great O-line. Defense is unbelievable. This is what the smart franchise do. This is what the Bears did last year with Caleb Williams. Again, new coaching staff, but they said, we've got to get that offensive line better, and let's get him as many weapons as we possibly can. We have to find out on his rookie contract, if Caleb's not the guy, we'll know it, because we've given him nothing but weapons and a good O-line and a smart coach in front of him. And Caleb showed up and just got better and better and better, won a playoff game, came back on Green Bay, almost beat the Rams in the playoffs. So it's like, we feel good about Caleb. The Broncos, I think they feel, the way Sean Payton talks about Bo Nix is like they talked about Drew Brees in New Orleans. There's a similar confidence, but let's make 100% sure, especially in the fact that Bo Nix, after this coming season, is going to be looking to get paid. He's going to be looking for a new contract. Let's make sure we have no doubts whatsoever. Give him a good trio of Waddle, Sutton, and Mims. Good running game, outstanding O-line. I think that for both sides, this makes a lot of sense. Denver's in a win-now situation with a really nice young quarterback on a rookie contract that they can stack great players around him. And for Miami, we're in a fire sale. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. Let's get as many picks as we can, and let's restack this roster in Jeff Hafley's image. So I think it's a smart move on both fronts. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm really excited for this. We're going to be doing an NBA relocation style of segment. So there are reports about, hey, there could be a meeting next week, a vote next week about the NBA getting a team back in Seattle and getting a team in Vegas to make it 32 teams in the NBA. If I were the commissioner of the league and I could just unilaterally make the decision in terms of how the NBA was laid out, this is how it would look. I'll show you in just a minute on Carving Up Live. I'm carving up the context in just a minute. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody for stopping by on a jam-packed Wednesday. A couple of orders of business real quick before we get to carving up the context. So first and foremost, we haven't done a Friday show in probably a month or so on the show. Well, likely next week, without question this Friday, we'll be back 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time. Friday shows are not even a question during football season because of predictions and what have you. Post Thursday night football reaction like that, there's no question. Whereas this time of year, sports news kind of slows down just a little bit. We've relegated it to Monday and Wednesday. Once we get to the NBA playoffs, it's back 3 days a week, baby. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Maybe even with a couple of, I did this last year when I was in Florida, some instant post-game reaction type of content. So stay tuned for all of that coming in the future. But we'll be back, as opposed to until next Monday, we'll be back on Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. Same place as usual, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and X. One of the fun things about doing a Friday show this time of year is because March Madness, the big dance, starts tomorrow afternoon. And so I'll be live, giving takes, doing whatever that we're going to be doing in terms of topics on the show, while also, hey, this game's going on, or this upset is brewing. How's my bracket? Probably at that point, totally dead. But it should be fun. March Madness truly is it's to me, the first 4 days of March Madness are the best 4 consecutive days of the sports calendar. It really is. Like if you could say 4 days there consistently, you know what you're going to be watching, and it always delivers. So it's going to be fun. So cannot wait for that. Also, again, before we get to carving up the context, check out our Carving It Up merchandise scan. The QR code on the top left corner of your screen to check out hats, t-shirts, hoodies, the whole bit. Thankfully, I'm in a hoodie now. The snow has melted here where I'm at in Tennessee. It was just coming down while we were on air on Monday, and it was coming down even a little bit yesterday. So it's been a weird weather period. It's 80 degrees last week. It's a winter wonderland this week. That's beside the point. My point is, hey, if it's like that where you live, check out some Carving It Up merchandise, some hoodies, t-shirts if you're working out, what have you, some water bottles, the whole bit. You can also check out our amazing content creators on the Grid Network. They got merch too. We got All Even Podcast. We got Metropolitan Report, Saturday Morning Tailgate, Cowboys Camp Fan, Mike and Josh, the whole bit, as well as some other awesome shows. So check out their content and their merchandise as well. And if you just want regular, plain Grid Network merchandise, we got that too. So scan the QR code, top left corner of your screen, and check out Carving It Up merch. That's where the link will take you. But also, if you want to explore a little bit, it will also take you to our other content creators on the Grid Network. So check that stuff out. All right. So a segment we do every Wednesday on the show, it's called Carving Up the Context. Essentially what I do is I look at a story and say, okay, let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's kind of look at the context around the story that I want to really dive into. We're going to be doing that, but with more of a creative twist. So I'll explain what I'm going to be talking about in just a moment right here. But first, as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, give me my theme music. On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, we're going to be talking about potential NBA expansion, which according to reports next week, the NBA is going to hold a vote on whether to add 2 expansion teams from the cities on the West Coast, Seattle, Washington, and Las Vegas, Nevada. And so, listen, Seattle, understandably so, has been calling to get their NBA team back for 2 decades now, basically. You will be hard-pressed. I have yet to meet an Oklahoma City Thunder fan who was once a Seattle Supersonics fan. That's obviously where the Sonics went. Now the OKC Thunder, defending champions. People think they could go back-to-back. They're in a great spot where Seattle's like, man, we got the Seahawks who are champions. The Mariners, who made the ALCS last year, came very close to getting to the Fall Classic. We want our basketball team back. Understandably so. They got a WNBA team. They want their NBA team back. And as for Vegas, it's the fastest-growing sports market in America. They've got the Raiders. They've got the Aces. They're going to get, the A's. Like, Vegas is rolling right now. So they're 2 understandable sort of destinations and venues for the NBA to locate to permanently. So what that will do if that gets approved, first of all, according to this article I'm reading by Shams Charania right now from a couple days ago, the 2 new franchises would start to play in the 2028-29 season, so in a couple of years. What that would do, because these are 2 far out West Coast teams, that would mean you'd have to move 1 team from the West to the East. It'd be 16-16, more in the 16 in just a moment. Who's going to be that one team? I think there are 3 potential candidates to move to the Eastern Conference out of the West. They are the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Memphis Grizzlies, the New Orleans Pelicans. All 3 of them are in position to potentially get moved to the East. There are those that have suggested the Minnesota Timberwolves, and geographically that kind of makes sense. I'll get to divisions in a second. There's a world in which that would work, except if you say, hey, of those 3 markets, let's be honest, which is the most, where are free agents most likely to head to? Minnesota, which is freezing, but by all accounts seems like a great city. New Orleans, which is an awesome city. If the team was better, they'd get more free agents, but it has nothing to do with the city. City's fantastic. Or Memphis. I think you relocate, and show the graphic, you relocate the Memphis Grizzlies to Nashville, and they become the Nashville Grizzlies. Nashville, love the city. We've got an arena already that hosts the Nashville Predators of the NHL. Bridgestone Arena, already got a spot there, so that's taken care of. As far as I know, I don't know if they did it this year, but Bridgestone Arena has hosted the SEC conference tournaments in basketball. So like they've hosted plenty of basketball in the past. You can move the Memphis Grizzlies there. Draymond Green even suggested on his show, like we've heard reports in recent years, like guys do not like playing in Memphis. It's for a number of reasons. Frankly, it's not a very safe city, number one. And number 2, like free agents don't go there. It's not, people don't like to play in Memphis. People love to play Nashville, just like they love to play in New Orleans, or they like to play Minnesota when it's not December through February. So you'd move the Memphis Grizzlies to the Eastern Conference. Minnesota stays, New Orleans stays. You add Seattle and Vegas. Before we get to how I would align the NBA beyond that, let me say this. And I think this is the obvious choice to go. But we don't know what the Vegas team's going to be called. It might be a play off of the Aces, defending WNBA champions, Asia Wilson, the whole bit. I don't know what the team name will be or what have you. Seattle's is easy peasy lemon squeezy. They go back to being the Supersonics. And what you do is what the Cleveland Browns did in the NFL. Those that may not remember, the Cleveland Browns relocated to Baltimore and became the Ravens. But when the Browns came back into the NFL, was it 2000? I think I could be wrong. I apologize, Matt. I remember it was early 21st century. What did the Browns do? They negotiated a deal with the Ravens so that the Browns got their history back. So like their pre-Super Bowl, because God knows they ain't got no Super Bowl trophies. They got their championships prior to the Super Bowl era. They've got their records, Jim Brown, Otto Graham, all the legends of Cleveland Browns past. That is now back with the Cleveland Browns as we know them. The Ravens, as they currently existed, used to be the Browns. But the Browns' history went back to Cleveland. The same could be the case with the Seattle Supersonics. They take their Seattle history from OKC. Now, if you go on like Basketball Reference and you check how many titles have the Oklahoma City Thunder won, technically 2. They won last year in 1979, but of course, they were the Supersonics back then. And I think Oklahoma City would happily oblige. Sam Presti, elite GM. I think he's the type of mindset. You'll imagine OKC will still be great by then. Like, yeah, you can have your history back. You can have your logo back, all of it. You go back to being the Supersonics. I heard Gary Payton II of my Golden State Warriors talk about, hey, if Seattle gets a team, I'm requesting a trade to go to Seattle. Because his dad, obviously, Gary Payton, was a legend there. So Seattle gets their history back from OKC. OKC is OKC's history. Seattle's Seattle's. So with that being said, with 32 teams now, I think is the opportunity, and they'd have 2 years to decide this. I discussed this last week on Carving Up the Context when talking about Steve Kerr and the idea of shrinking the NBA season to 72 games. Now is the opportunity to do it. And from a math perspective, makes all the sense in the world. We won't get into that today, but it's pretty straightforward. As far as how it will be divided, just show the graphic. This is how I think it should look. Currently you have 6 divisions with 5 teams each. Obviously, you have 32 teams now with the 2 expansion teams, Seattle, and you see right there, bottom right corner of your screen, they get their logo back. Maybe they change a little bit, but they'd be the Seattle Supersonics again. Vegas expansion team, we don't know what they'll be called or what they'll look like. But instead now, you'll have 4 divisions, 4 teams apiece, Geographically, it makes sense. So Eastern Conference, Celtics, Nets, Knicks, and Sixers, all kind of in that same general area. Same with the Pacers, Raptors, Pistons, Wizards, not quite so much. But again, Eastern Conference is a little more complicated. Then kind of in that southern region of the country, you have to kick somebody out. You could convince me out of Memphis or moving, not Memphis, they'd be the Nashville Grizzlies. Moving Nashville to the division with Atlanta, Miami, and Orlando, and putting Charlotte with Chicago, Cleveland, and Milwaukee. But the way I have it out listed as now, 4 divisions: Celtics, Nets, Knicks, Sixers. That's one division. The next division, Pacers, Raptors, Pistons, Wizards. The next one, Hawks, Hornets, Heat, Magic. And then the final, Bulls, Cavs, Grizzlies, and Bucks. In the Western Conference, the first 2 divisions are easy peasy lemon squeeze. The first one, Rockets, Spurs, Thunder, Mavs. You get the 3 Texas teams and the 1 Oklahoma team. Makes all the sense in the world. The next division, you get the 4 California teams: Warriors, Lakers, Clippers, and Kings. The next one, kind of have that, again, it's a little weird just because of the location element with Minnesota and New Orleans, but it's the best I could come up with relative to how we're doing this. Jazz, Nuggets, Pelicans, Timberwolves. And then the final division, Suns, Blazers, Vegas expansion team, and the Seattle Supersonics. What this would then do, the way I would organize this, and the NBA used to do this, they don't anymore. And shout out to my man Barry Grant Jr. He suggested this for years. I think this will be the perfect opportunity to put it into practice. Divisions now matter. If you win your division, you're guaranteed a top 4 seed in the playoffs. You're guaranteed home court for the first round. That's the way it is. I mean, just put that back up on the screen. Look at the West. We have it. Here you go. Look at the Western Conference. We think OKC and San Antonio is going to be good for the next few years, right? I think we all generally agree on that. Young talent, great coaching, all of it. Can you imagine a Western Conference playoff chase or division chase between the Spurs and Thunder? There's already, I think, a little bit of bad blood that I think could brew this year in the playoffs between those two. Imagine we get it with the added stakes of, hey, one of us won't get to host a playoff series. Like that, or not host, but have home court for a single playoff series barring upsets below us in the bracket. That's stakes right there. Or you could get, again, it would have been funner about 4 or 5 years ago, but like, oh my gosh, Lakers, Warriors, LeBron and Steph competing for the division. That would be a conversation. Anthony Edwards, Nikola Jokic, who's going to take that division? That would be a question then too. Now, for that last division, obviously you'll have Seattle coming back in, Vegas. You'll have expansion draft, the whole bit. It'll be much easier for a team like Portland or Phoenix to win, but over time it would correct itself. You add again, by shortening the games, not shortening the games, still be 48 minutes, shortening the number of games to 72, because as the science has proven, more injuries, the game is played at a faster pace than at any point in NBA history. The scoring is higher than at any point since 1969, 1970. If you shrink the number of games and you make divisions matter, more sense of urgency. The games matter more. Geographically, again, those divisions tend to make more sense. There's the excitement. Oh, the Sonics are back. And oh, there's a team in Vegas. Oh, Memphis moved to Nashville. Much more of a tourist destination. On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, I put that back up on the screen. I think it works. Geographically, the divisions make sense. You make divisions matter. You cut the season to 72 games, which with 16 teams, you'd be able to do that. I think it works. This is how I'd organize it. I'd move the Memphis Grizzlies to Nashville and move them to the Eastern Conference. Yeah, Vegas and Seattle obviously to the West. Now you got even number, 16-16. Divide it into 4 divisions, 4 teams apiece. Win best record in each of those 4, get home court in the first round. I think it adds sense of urgency. It makes the games matter more. It potentially reduces, with the 72 games, potentially reduces tanking. I love it. I think it makes sense. So in this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, that is how I'd realign the National Basketball Association. Listen, I think it's going to get passed. I think it's going to get voted on that the NBA is going to get a Seattle and a Vegas franchise. I would be flabbergasted if Seattle doesn't get the Supersonics back. It makes too much sense. OKC gives their Seattle history back to the Sonics. So like they get all the retired jerseys, all the records, the 1979 title, all of it. And then they kind of get to continue that. Now start from scratch to a certain degree because they haven't been a franchise since 07, I think. 07? No, 08. I think it was 08 was the first year of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the last year previously 07, 08 of the Supersonics. And then Vegas, clean slate. You can do whatever you want with that. And by that time, 2 years from now, LeBron's retired. He's floated the idea of purchasing, buying a stake, into a Vegas franchise. I like it. I think it makes all the sense in the world. All right, so let's shift now to the NFL draft because it's coming in a month and 5 days, first round at least. So again, I've been doing more and more mock drafts on the show in recent years. With the Jaylen Waddle trade, now you have a little bit of a new wrinkle in the mix where the 30th pick no longer belongs to Denver, belongs to Miami. So let's go and get into it. First 4 picks of my mock draft 2.0. We can go ahead and put up on the screen right there. Again, 3 of the 4 picks don't change at all. Fernando Mendoza to the Raiders is a formality. We don't need to get into that. I know the Jets are talking about potentially between David, this is David Bailey, I should say, David Bailey, or Arvell Reese. I still think they go Arvell Reese. He's the best linebacker in college football, without a question. The Jets and Aaron Glenn have clearly said, hey, if I'm getting fired, then I'm investing in the defense. They paid a lot of guys in free agency. I maintain what I said last week. If you bring Arvell Reese into the Jets and he gets DeMario Davis to mentor him, that would be great for the young kid. I think he goes to the Jets. David Bailey, edge from Texas Tech. He goes to the Arizona Cardinals, number 3. They desperately help on the edges. They decide to go in that direction. Jeremiah Love to the Titans. I'm not going to say it's not as much of a formality as Fernando Mendoza to the Raiders. We might as well just start the draft with number 2. Just go and give Fernando his Raiders cap and move on. But not just the talk in recent days, like the Titans love him and he catch passes out the backfield, run the football, give some help to Cam Ward. It makes too much sense. You give Cam Ward help in the backfield. Brian Daboll's obviously a very smart offensive coordinator. That it makes too much sense for the Titans. By the way, I like the new logo for Tennessee. I really, really do. Kind of paying homage to the Houston Oilers. I like it a lot. So I think Jeremiah Love would go to the Tennessee Titans. Next 4 picks. Again, Francis Mauigoa to the New York Giants. They need help on the opposite tackle position, opposite Andrew Thomas. Let's protect Jackson Dart. You still have solid weapons there. I would go tackle. Carnell Tate. The Browns need weapons desperately. Carnell Tate to the Cleveland Browns. I think he's the best receiver in this draft. He can run every route in the book. Wicked fast. He goes to Cleveland. Caleb Downs going to the Washington Commanders, 7th overall safety out of Ohio State. Again, he's the best DB in this draft. There's no question about it. Washington needs to almost go all defense in this draft. Make sure that they're able to back up Jaden Daniels to a certain degree. Caleb Downs, safety out of Ohio State, goes to the Commanders. Jordan Tyson, just like in my last mock, goes to the Saints. Second best receiver in this draft, in my mind. You need to make sure that Tyler Shugg has as much help as he can. First full season as a starter. Let's give him an opportunity to see, okay, is this our guy for the future? So Jordan Tyson goes to the New Orleans Saints. Up next, next 4 picks, Reuben Bain goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Love him out of Miami. Chiefs really have never had a great edge rusher. Obviously we talk about guys like Chris Jones who can get to the quarterback, but he's an interior defensive lineman and he's getting up there in age. Reuben Bain can come in, fresh blood. The Chiefs tried to address this in previous drafts. Karlaftis, for example, to try and get the edge rusher right. It's never really worked out the way that they wanted it to. Reuben Bain goes to the Kansas City Chiefs at number 9. The Bengals really just, I don't know if they will because they're not a well-run franchise. They need to go all defense in this draft. Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State, makes a lot of sense for them. Linebacker might be their weakest position. Keldrick Falk, I like him more than most. I love what I saw from him in Auburn. He goes to the Miami Dolphins. Listen, we know that Jeff Hafley's a defensive guy. It makes all the sense in the world for his first draft pick to be a defensive player. And just like mock draft 1.0, I have Jermon McCoy going to the Dallas Cowboys. Shout out to my friends at the Cowboys Cam Fan podcast. Check their show out. They do a great job. I was talking to them and they were talking about there's some concerns there with the medical stuff. By all accounts, including by Jermon McCoy himself, he says, hey, I'm going to be ready to go for my pro day in a couple of weeks. If that's the case, the film does not lie. The kid is a stud, elite cover corner, good technique, not a burner, not a guy who's you love in one-on-one matchups with speedsters, but is a great pure cover corner. Jermon McCoy goes to the Dallas Cowboys, who desperately need help in that department. Next 4 picks. Los Angeles Rams with Atlanta's pick, they decide to go tackle Spencer Fano, offensive tackle from Utah, interchangeable, can move to either of the tackle roles. Let's make sure with all the weapons Matthew Stafford has, he has as much time as possible to throw. Could be his final season in the NFL. The Rams are completely all in, as evidenced by the trade for Trent McDuffie this offseason. Add Spencer Fano, give Matt Stafford some protection. Lamar Jackson has never had an elite wide receiver or anything close to it in his time in Baltimore. If you like Zay Flowers, knock yourself out. Rashad Bateman, okay. Mekhi Lemon, love him, out of USC. Give Lamar a consistent pass catcher with Isaiah Likely gone, with Mark Andrews not getting any younger. Same can be said about Derrick Henry, although he doesn't catch passes. You need to get as many offensive weapons around Lamar as you can. Mekhi Lemon makes a lot of sense for them here. Colton Hood, the other defensive back for my beloved Tennessee Volunteers, he goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 15 overall. The Bucs are another team, especially with a defensive coach. I've always said, the mark of any competent coach in the NFL. What's your sensibility? What's your side of the ball? How does that side of the ball produce? And it's not looked great in Tampa. It hasn't been bad. Over the second half of the season, they kind of collapsed, especially in that one Thursday night game against Atlanta that kind of cost them the division back, and I think that was week 14 or 15 for the Bucs. Todd Bowles on the hot seat. He's going to go on in defense. Colton Hood makes a ton of sense. He's a playmaker. Love him. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Bucs. And then Denzel Boston to the Jets. The Jets just need players. They need to load up on as many good players they possibly can in this draft. They've gone all in with some of the trades they made, particularly last season, moving Sauce Gardner, which was a smart trade. That would net them Denzel Boston because this was Indianapolis's original pick. Then obviously they moved Quinnen Williams as well. So I think this is going to be a solid draft for the New York Football Jets. On to our next 4 picks from here for the Detroit Lions. Listen, Detroit went from a few years ago, I thought with respect to Philadelphia having the best offensive line in football to got guys leaving free agency, got retirements. Like we need to protect Jared Goff. I know the Lions are bad on defense. I get it. I had them taking a defensive player in last week's mock draft. At the same time, the key to limiting Detroit's offense, and the book, I've always said this, has been out on Jared Goff from day one. Jared Goff, when he has time to throw in the pocket, is an elite quarterback. When he faces even a little bit of pressure, he folds. Like that's the reality of it. Getting a guy like Monroe Freeling, offensive tackle from the University of Georgia. Big guy, 6'7", just a monster up front, could be able to help protect Jared Goff. That makes a lot of sense for the Lions. And he doesn't feel like he's kind of like a Dan Campbell guy, Georgia Bulldog, big tackle. It kind of makes sense. Dylan Fenneman, safety from Oregon to the Minnesota Vikings. Listen, we know Minnesota's obviously an excellent defense. Harrison Smith, though, could potentially retire. If he doesn't retire and the Vikings bring him back, this will almost certainly be his last year. Brian Flores, elite defensive coordinator. They need help at safety. Getting the guy from Oregon definitely helps them. I'm going to get his name right. Ola Vivega Eoan, I think is how I say his name. I apologize. Guard from Penn State going to the Carolina Panthers. Listen, Carolina lost Caden Mays in free agency. This is by far the best guard in this draft, being able to help them on the interior. This is the case with any quarterback, but especially guys who aren't crazy athletically gifted. Like Bryce Young is more athletic than Jared Goff, but he's not, Lamar Jackson. Or Josh Allen. It's not going to blow you away. The easiest way to make a quarterback's life a living hell is getting pressure up the middle. Drafting this guy will help that tremendously, especially as Bryce Young goes into year 4. And the Panthers, let's see if he's potentially our guy. Akeem Mesidor, edge out of Miami, goes to the Dallas Cowboys with their second first-round pick at number 20. Again, Dallas, if they go all defense with some help at the offensive line, that makes sense. If Ioane is available at number 20, I think it makes sense for the Cowboys to take him there because they need help on the interior of their offensive line. If not, go edge rusher. Mesidor was the second half of a great duo at Miami a year ago. On to our next 4 picks. For my Pittsburgh Steelers, I think the Steelers have to go offensive line with their first-round pick. This time, I had them going Caleb Lomu. In the last mock draft, I had them going Caden Proctor, tackle out of Alabama at number 21. I really hope Aaron Rodgers isn't our quarterback next year, but regardless of who it is or who the Steelers believe can be their franchise quarterback, if it comes in this year's draft or next year's draft, drafting a guy like Caden Proctor when they bombed on a lot of tackle picks under Mike Tomlin, who could not develop an offensive line to save his life. Mike McCarthy has had a lot of good offensive lines in Green Bay and in Dallas. Getting an offensive line with his first pick would make a lot of sense. Mansour Delane, defensive back out of LSU, would add to an excellent Chargers defensive backfield. You've got Derwin James. Again, he feels like a Harbaugh guy, hard, tough nose. Is the type of guy you can plug in there in LA and be able to help them tremendously, especially with a high-octane offense now with Denver adding a guy like Jaylen Waddle. We'll see what the Raiders do next year with Fernando Mendoza and Brock Bowers and company. And the Chiefs are the Chiefs. It's Mahomes and Andy Reid. You got to lock up those receivers. TJ Parker, edge out of Clemson, goes to the Eagles at number 23. Eagles need help at pass rush, especially since they lost Jalen Phillips in free agency, which I think shocked a lot of people, including myself, to the Carolina Panthers. They're in a spot where, hey, we need help off the edge. We're awesome in the interior. The two big guys from Georgia, we need a guy. TJ Parker can fill that hole on the outside edge rusher. He goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Caleb Lomu, again, I had him to go to Pittsburgh in my last mock draft. Staying in the AFC North, I think he goes to the Cleveland Browns with their second first-round pick at number 24. Protect Shedeur Sanders, give him an opportunity to be successful. Browns go Caleb Lomu at number 24. On our next four picks, what do we have here? Caden McDonald, defensive tackle out of Ohio State, goes to the Bears at number 25. I think everybody would be stunned if Chicago goes anything other than defense with their first and maybe their second round pick as well. I had them going Colton Hood with my first mock draft. I got them going Caden McDonald in my second. Get some help on the interior. When you're facing teams like, smart offensively coached teams like the Lions, like the Packers, like the Minnesota Vikings, you're in a spot where, hey, we've got to be able to stop the run on a consistent basis, get the ball back to Caleb Williams as quickly as we can. A guy like Caden McDonald can be able to help that. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, safety out of Toledo, going to the Buffalo Bills. We know the weak point of Buffalo's defense is their back end, is their secondary. They've been ravaged by injuries with older players. They've lost guys in free agency. This is a guy who I think could be able to fill that hole. Maxi Nachor, offensive tackle out of Arizona State, going to the Niners. Inexperienced guy. That's kind of a knock on him going into this draft. But let's be honest, we're not sure if Trent Williams is going to be a Niner for much longer. If he is, he's probably gone after this year, likely into retirement, and then 5 years from now to Canton, Ohio. You got to protect Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's had a series of injury every single season of his career with the exception of 2023. Got to protect Brock Purdy, be able to take an offensive lineman here. The best offensive lineman left, best tackle certainly left at this point in the draft. Makes a lot of sense. And again, for Houston's in a rough spot, man. This is as good of an offensive tackle draft as you will see in some time, and Houston desperately needs as much as they can get. At the same time, there's an element of, if we take any of the guards left on the list, we're kind of overdrafting. The same applies, to some of the tackles left at this particular point in time. If Ianachurch falls to Houston, they take him. Or maybe the Texans trade up to get a tackle to protect C.J. Stroud. But in this case, listen, they're awesome on the edges, obviously, with Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter. Let's add a guy in the interior in Peter Woods, defensive tackle out of Clemson, going to the Houston Texans with the 28th overall pick. And rounding out my first round of this mock draft with the new addition with Miami at number 30, Brandon Sissy goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, Kansas City has a really good history of developing corners in recent years. They move Trent McDuffie to the Los Angeles Rams. Jalen Watson's gone, so they've got a big hole in their secondary. This guy is one of the best DBs in the draft. They go him at number 29. What's funny is I had the Broncos at number 30 drafting Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver from Indiana. I've got the Dolphins drafting the same guy because now that they moved Jaylen Waddle, that fixes Denver's need. Now they need a good wide receiver to help a guy like Malik Willis. So I think that makes sense. I could be wrong in this, but I think based on team need, barring a trade, which we know it's the first round, it's very likely that we could see that happen in future mock drafts and in the real draft in April. Kenyon Sadiq, by far the best tight end in this draft. This is, if you're a Patriots fan, this will be like Christmas Day. Like, oh my gosh, easily the best player in the draft. I think ESPN has him as or best tight end in the draft, I should say. ESPN, I think, has him as like the 10th best player in the draft. If he falls to you, like, oh, here we go. We got a great pass catcher for Drake May. That'd make a lot of sense. Him going to the Patriots at number 31. And the Seattle Seahawks, they've lost a lot of defensive starters. They lost Boye Mafe recently to the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's add Zion Young, edge out of Missouri, with the final pick in the first round. So that's my mock draft. A lot of different changes from the previous one, and you'll see it in the future depending on scouting reports, depending on if teams are considering trading up. The view on Ty Simpson, both mock drafts, no Ty Simpson. The only quarterback going is Fernando Mendoza, number 1 overall to the Vegas Raiders. At this point in time, I know you got folks like Dan Orlovsky who think Ty Simpson, his tape is as good as Fernando Mendoza. Listen, Orlovsky can break down tape with the best of them. Certainly a heck of a lot better than me. I didn't see that. I really didn't. Maybe I'm wrong, but I did not see that with Ty Simpson. I think he's the second best QB in the draft. but that's not saying much. I think it's a weak draft. I think Carson Beck's the third best quarterback in this class. It's Mendoza by a mile is the best guy from that position at the most important position in football, quarterback in this 2026 class. That's how I think it's going to pan out. Again, in future mock drafts, next week after that, 3.0, 4.0, I could have some trades. We could have real life trades between now and then. We obviously, between last week and this week, had Denver and Miami. We'll see how it transpires. But I think the number one takeaway is this: if you need help on your offensive line, this is the draft to get to help that out. Teams like Pittsburgh, teams like Houston, San Francisco, kind of bottom in the first round, could trade up to get their guy. Dallas needs help on the interior of their offensive line. That's how I think it's going to shake out. So that is my mock draft 2.0. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, big news out of the WNBA. Got a new CBA. The season is going to take place, which is great news for everybody involved. Why the CBA is beneficial for the players as well as the growth of the league at large. Get to that before we get out of here on today's episode of Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody for stopping by on a Wednesday. Again, for the last month or so, we haven't been doing Friday shows. That's going to change this week. We'll be back Friday, same time as usual, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Carving It Up, YouTube, Twitch, X, Facebook, the whole bit. Might be on Instagram, might not be on Instagram. We'll see. It kind of depends on the show. Again, what's fun about those episodes is giving my takes and what have you, while also like checking my phone constantly. Okay, what are the scores of like these 5 games going on right now? Again, March Madness, I said it earlier on the show. March Madness is the first 2 rounds, the best consecutive 4-day sporting event there is. In terms of just peak entertainment, it's basketball literally from, if you're on the West Coast, literally not long after you get out of bed till when you put the kids to bed or when you put yourself to bed at night. Like it's as good as it gets. So very, very excited. Again, before we move on to our WNBA topic, might as well show once again my men's and women's Final Four. So for my women's Final Four, I've got UConn versus Iowa and then LSU versus Texas. And then I think UConn beats LSU in the national championship game. UConn is there are certain teams in college sports where it just feels inevitable, and that's the case with the UConn Huskies. Certainly not the case in the men's brackets, a little bit more wide open. Excuse me, in my Final Four, I've got Duke versus Houston, and then Purdue versus Virginia. I think the Boilermakers get the W over the Cavaliers, and then in maybe the best game of the tournament, a rematch from last year, Duke gets revenge on the Cougars. They advance, and then the Duke Blue Devils, for the first time in over a decade, believe it or not, win the college basketball men's national championship. So that's what I've got for my Final Four. So just sort of as like a recap of what I've got to lock it in stone. I've already got my brackets locked in on ESPN. We'll see how it goes. I know my man Mike Guido. Shout out to Mike, co-host of the Mike and Josh show. Great stuff. I highly recommend their show. I think I could be wrong on this. If Mike's watching, I apologize if I'm misquoting him. But I feel like he told me like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that he had a perfect bracket one year going into the Sweet 16, which to me is like is the hardest part. Like if you're perfect in the Sweet 16, I feel like it's almost gets easier from there because the hardest thing to do is predict all the upsets. Now, as I discussed on Monday's show, and I saw something along the lines of the NIL gap in a lot of these first-round matchups between some of these mid-major schools and Duke, Arizona, Michigan, is that upsets are going to happen less and less frequently. Now, maybe I'm wrong. That's not to say they can't happen. I think South Florida's going to get a win. I think I only have 3 double-digit seeds winning a game at all in the tournament. I had Utah State they're a 9 seed going on a little bit of a Cinderella run to the Sweet 16, but that's it. As far as just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's not going to happen as much. It rarely happens at all in the women's tournament. It used to happen a lot in the men's tournament, not so much in recent years. I think that trend's going to continue thanks to NIL. Now, whether the solution is to add a salary cap, I'm not against that. That still doesn't, the gap will shorten, I guess, and upsets, they're called that for a reason. They don't happen often. I still don't think it happens a ton in the future with this tournament, but we'll see what happens. All right, last topic before we get out of here. The WNBA, great news out of that league today. Because I was thinking, gosh, season starts in May. March Madness is about to start. Like we're getting to a point where there might be a lockout or a lockout and the season gets postponed. I didn't think it was going to get to a point where we wouldn't have a 2026 WNBA season. I didn't think it'd get there. Eventually, one side or the other, the Players Association or the league is going to cave to a certain degree. Thankfully, none of that happened. The league came to an agreement on a brand new collective bargaining agreement. And the terms are kind of historic for this league that began in mid-90s. So the salary cap is going to go from $1.5 million last year to this year, $7 million. So it's a huge jump in that regard. The Supermax contract used to be previously last year, $249K. It's going to go up to $1.4 million. So a huge jump in terms of the Supermax contract. Average annual salary in the WNBA last year, $120K. This year, average $600K. Minimum salary, the minimum salary you can sign, $66K. This year, $300K. So just a gigantic, expansion in that regard. Also, too, the players are anticipated, according to ESPN, according to Shams Charania, the players are anticipated to earn the league's first $1 million salaries, and the league salary system is expected to be tied to revenue growth, average revenue share of nearly 20% across the deal. And I know I'm going to get out ahead of it now if I haven't already. If I'm late to this, okay. I'm sure you're going to have the usual suspects on the internet that frankly like to be trolls, make their living off of profiting off of Elon's app in their fake verified accounts and what have you. Talk about, man, league doesn't make any money. How could revenue grow? Average annual salary. Why is the Supermax where it is? Folks, when leagues sign these CBAs or when leagues sign TV deals, it's projecting. It's, okay, what are the trends we see that are going on right now? Do we think those are sustainable for the future? Like for years. Oh my gosh. NBA, it is dying. A few years ago, they finalized an 11-year contract that spans, I'm reading it right now, somewhere around $76 to $77 billion. Attendance is up, social media up. If you want to say ratings are down from the Jordan era, okay, but social media didn't exist. The league didn't have as many good players. It just didn't. Now, as it does now, where it's spread out more. There's not dynasties now, which I think the worst part about the NBA's current CBA is the second apron, which basically stops teams and punishes teams for drafting well. So that if they want to extend all the players are drafted, they can't do it, which I think is terrible business. Regardless, it's all projection. If you had to be someone just looking at the NBA, or WNBA rather, and saying in 2026, relative to where it was in 2023, do I see an upwards trajectory? Do I see it more likely that the league is going to get more popular or less? 3 years ago, that was a legitimate question. It was growing a little bit. There was still a lot of financial reliance on the NBA. This CBA puts the WNBA in a position to where that won't be the case in the future. At least that's what the hope is going to be. The players make more, the league makes more, and at the end of the day, what it does is it says, okay, Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, Angel Reese, in the future, Juju Watkins, these are kind of going to be the face of the league. Asia Wilson, easily the best player in the league at the peak of her powers. as far as I'm concerned, in the GOAT discussion for women's basketball players. We're doing what the NBA does and what in basketball you should do, marketing your game around the stars, around the superstars. Ratings up, attendance up. You know, you got Team USA going on now. You had the Unrivaled League going on last year, which did very well on social media. It kind of introduced kind of the casual fans to some of these players. It's going to be an incremental process, but what the CBA says is people are more interested in the WNBA than they've ever been, and we're going to project that that's going to continue to be the case. Caitlin Clark's not in her prime yet. Neither is Paige Beckers. Neither is, Angel Reese. Juju Watkins not even in the league yet, but we believe she's going to be awesome once she gets there. So this idea that we should project for the future based on the last decade or so of the past, when the last 2 years has seen gigantic growth, jersey sales, ticket sales, butts and seats, the whole bit, the TV ratings. Like the WNBA on my show and on shows that cover all sports. Listen, I'll be honest. I've always loved the WNBA. I've talked about the WNBA prior to kind of the Caitlin Clark revolution, so to speak. Never more since then. Never talked about the league more since the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, sort of with the assistance of Beckers and Juju Watkins. And then you look at the league, and you're like, oh my gosh, you've got Asia Wilson, you've got Brianna Stewart, you've got all of these great players. So the CBA makes all of this work. I'm really, really glad that it got done. We did the carving up the context. I think this was in October, I think it was, when Nafisa Collier, who's an elite player in her own right for the Minnesota Lynx, kind of exposed what was going on behind closed doors. I think to give the players leverage, understandably so, in their negotiations with the league, with Kathy, discuss what Kathy Engelbert said, the commissioner of the league, about, do players like Caitlin Clark, do they really matter that much? And someone like Nafisa Collier is like, yeah, I'm seeing more people at our games than ever. Ratings are up. Interest in our league's up. Jersey sales up. Ticket sales up. I think the league's in a pretty good place and it's getting better. This new deal solidifies that. And it's kind of like I've said, regarding, I've talked to people about this, when they left Caitlin Clark off of Team USA 2 years ago for the Olympics, and I discussed at the time, I think it was actually good because Caitlin had been playing nonstop basketball for a year, and then post-Olympic break was unbelievable. That's when we saw her develop into, is she like one of the 5 best players in the league? We didn't think that prior to the Olympics. More so than that, though, the argument, well, if you put her on the team now, you capitalize on her popularity. Will she play that much? Probably not. She'll be like the Tyrese Halliburton of the 2024 men's team. That's kind of what her role will be. Play a little bit, maybe some garbage time. That's about it. But capitalize on her popularity. To which I've said, okay, we think she's going to get better, right? Like we think at age, however old she is, 22, 23, 24, we think she's going to improve, correct? I know she had the injury last year. Looks like she's in good shape now. Okay, if she's going to improve, then her team's going to improve. And if her team improves, they're on TV more. Caitlin Clark is in front of more eyeballs. We watch her game. We obviously love the way she plays. She doesn't play exactly like Steph Curry, but she at least shoots like Steph Curry. That's fun to watch. So Caitlin's not going to get less popular as time goes on. Players like young elite players like Paige Beckers and Juju Watkins coming back from injury, and as Angel Reese gets better, that's going to be the story moving forward. So I'm glad the league got this deal done. I really am. I'm really glad that this didn't have to get to a lockout situation. And again, for those that don't think that the terms of this deal should have been what they were, again, this is based on, we see an upwards trajectory in all the categories that matter for a professional league. Ticket sales, television ratings, jersey sales. There's more interest in this league than there's ever been. We're going to adjust for that. Our deal is going to reflect that. If people don't think the NBA matters, look at their TV deal. Matters a little bit. They wouldn't have signed a television deal with, Amazon, Peacock, and what have you for in excess of $70 billion if the league didn't matter. So that's where I'm at. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carver Up Live this Friday. We're back on Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, and on X. Hope everybody has a great rest of their week. March Madness starts tomorrow. Let the madness begin. I'm very excited about it. I hated how my Vols, or the draw my Vols got. Like, okay, we got to play potentially Miami of Ohio, who didn't lose a game until like last week. And then if we win that, our reward is, hey, you get to play Virginia. That's not a good draw for my beloved Vols. So we'll see what happens. But more Carving It Up on Friday, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time. Hope everybody has a great week. We'll see you then. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. And please, for the love of God, Steelers, don't sign Aaron Rodgers. I'm begging. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. And be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.